Welcome to the SJSU Green Campus Podcast, a podcast about a range of sustainability and social issues that impact the SJSU campus and the broader community, hosted by the student interns from the San Jose State University Office of Sustainability.
Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the SJSU Green Campus Podcast. My name is Grizel. My pronouns are she, hers.
And I'm Chelsea. My pronouns are she, her.
And we are our host today for today's episode. Today we are joined by Violet Awwad from our city forest, who will be discussing the importance of trees in school. Welcome, Violet. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today and to talk about trees and how important they are.
Thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and our city forest? How did you get involved with this organization?
So yeah, I went to school at UC Berkeley. I got my major in sustainable environmental design and I minored in food systems. And then I was supposed to graduate May 2020 when the pandemic happened. And that kind of, as everyone knows, threw everything off a little bit, but I was lucky enough to join the California Climate Action Corps, and through the CCAC, as it's otherwise known, I was placed with our city forest to serve my 7.5-month long term. And OCF is a nonprofit based in San Jose. We've been around since 1994. We focus on urban forestry and education in the community. We do things like planting trees in residential areas. We work with the Department of Transportation, but we also do really cool programs like Lawn Busters, where we will take out your grass lawn and replace it with a drought tolerant landscape. And yeah, my program in particular is focused on schools and bringing trees and tree knowledge to schools, specifically in underserved areas, historically underserved and disadvantaged areas. And that is why I'm here today, is to discuss how these trees can improve our schools.
Thanks so much for your introductions. And I want to agree with you that our city forest is doing some really cool and amazing stuff. In fact, we've done a collaboration with our city forest before on a IGTV video. It was about the lawn busters. So for our listeners, if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check it out on our Instagram page and also our YouTube. So before we dive into more questions, I'm going to hand it over to Violet to do the land acknowledgement.
Yeah, so because the work we do is very much tied in with the land, I think it's really important to do a land acknowledgement. So just acknowledging that we are on stolen and colonized land, and that the people that have been here before us are the Muwekma, the Tamien, and the Ohlone. And they are still here and thriving. And there's a bunch of different organizations that y'all can check out, like the Segurite Land Trust. And there's Cafe Ohlone in Berkeley, which is a really cool restaurant that serves Ohlone food. And then there's the organization Indian People Organizing for Change, and then Honor the Earth. So I just thought it was important to have this land acknowledgement because we are planting trees that is tied in with the earth. And I highly encourage all our listeners to go to nativeland.ca and see the people that were originally on the land that you're living on.
Thank you for the land acknowledgement. So let's dive right into today's topic, starting with the first question that we have for you is, why should we be planting trees in school?
Trees have a lot of benefits on both the environment, obviously, but on people and individuals. And I think in schools where kids and students are spending so much of their time, it's really important to have these trees around to give them the best possible learning environment so they can grow and improve to be the best possible versions of themselves. And it's not just, oh, trees are beautiful, but there's a lot of evidence showing that trees have real impacts on students' mental and physical health and also the environment, which is a great plus.
Yeah, so as you're talking about like the benefits of trees and stuff, what are the like greatest benefits that these trees help students? So like what exactly are these benefits?
Yeah, so trees have been shown to help us relax and recover from mental fatigue. So when you're sitting through hour and a half long lectures, it's nice to be able to go outside and like recharge from these trees. They also help us retain information and focus better and concentrate. And now retaining information and focusing and concentrating, this is most observed when trees are visible through classroom windows.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really cool. And contrary to popular belief of educators, they think that holding outdoor lessons will get students like rowdy and not be able to have them focus. It actually helps them to perform better once they get back into the classroom.
I've actually heard of that. Like I think in elementary school, our science teacher would sometimes want to go outside to like teach an outside lesson. Then there's like controversial topics that, oh, the trees are too distracting for students. They're just gonna be
Yeah.
trees all day.
Yeah, exactly. And we're coming to find out that it's actually the opposite. Like it gives them a chance to get out all the energy and then get back in the classroom and like and you're still learning, like you're playing and learning, which I think is the best kind of learning environment. And on top of that, it just really enhances a school's curriculum, like whether that be a science curriculum or anything really. It just brings another aspect and another way of learning. I think oftentimes we think there's one way to learning when in reality, everybody learns differently. And this is just another tool in the toolbox to learn.
I definitely 100% agree with you. Like whenever we have one of those learning days outside, those were definitely one of my favorite days in class.
Yeah, sure.
Because I learn better I don't know why, when we're outside versus in like the typical classroom where the professors are just lecturing us or something like that. But yeah. So I know earlier that you mentioned some of the impacts of trees have some benefits on our physical health. So what are some of these physical benefits that trees have on us?
Yeah, so it's really cool. Trees have been shown to lower our blood pressure and increase our energy levels, and in some cases, reduce our chances of having an asthma attack, and also reduce our chances of having heat-related illnesses. And in some cases, mostly when you're doing something called forest bathing, so when you're going into a forest and camping for a few days, it has been shown that trees can boost your immune system. But like I said, this doesn't necessarily hold true in an urban forestry setting, but it's cool to know that when you go out into like Muir Woods and you camp out there, you are boosting your immune system. And another cool thing is trees actually promote safer driving. So one study found that streets that have been lined with trees have a decrease in crashes anywhere from 5% to 46%. And I think that's just really important, especially around schools. We have all these signs saying slow down, children crossing. But another great thing people could do is, have tree lined streets, and that could reduce the chances of car crashes and promote safer driving. And then lastly, which isn't necessarily an impact on our physical health, but more so our bank accounts. So trees can save you money and make you money. And I'll go into this a little more later, but something that can be seen as either a pro or con, honestly, it just depends in like the situation and the circumstances, but trees can increase your property value. So a healthy mature tree can add 10%, an average of 10% to a property's value, and that's coming from the USDA Forest Service. And then trees also reduce the need for AC and heater usage, and this could be anywhere from 30% for air conditioner, and then 20 to 50% decrease in energy use for heating. So that's really cool.
Oh, that is really cool. So how do trees help mitigate climate change?
Yeah, I love this question because climate change wasn't always something that we were talking about. It's something that we knew, but not really something that was on the main focus. But knowing that something so simple as planting a tree can do so much. So, for one, trees provide a habitat for wildlife like birds and pollinators, squirrels. And this is also something that going back to schools could be a cool lesson, observing all the wildlife in trees. But more importantly, trees help replenish our groundwater. And I know we're in a drought right now, and it's really a common train of thought to think we should not be planting trees right now. We need to save water and conserve our water. But in the long run, trees help our groundwater replenish itself, and it also helps filter out pollutants, so it decreases water pollution. And then in some instances, with certain kinds of trees, they are able to actually absorb harmful gases. So like during wildfire seasons, it can remove some of those pollutants in the air. So this is mostly seen with trees that have leaves that are kind of furry and fuzzy. If you've ever felt like one of those leaves and you're like, wow, it feels like almost like an animal or something, like lamb's ear. It's not a tree, but it has that same fuzzy feeling. These leaves help filter out these pollutants. So trees and soil are very much intertwined. Trees actually decrease soil erosion, and we're coming to find out that our topsoil has really worn away since the start of kind of like the green revolution in agriculture. We've seen our topsoils dwindling, and being able to plant those trees, it'll really decrease that soil erosion. I mean, agriculture is something else, but just in general. And then they also encourage a healthy soil microbiome. So same thing in our guts, we need a healthy, we talk about probiotics. We need all these microbes in there to stay healthy. And the same thing holds true with our soils. And trees actually promote a healthy soil microbiome because they allow areas for water to flow through and air to flow through, and all of that is healthy for these microbes. And I think the two biggest impacts trees have on climate change is being able to sequester carbon. So essentially, they're taking in this carbon dioxide and photosynthesizing it and turning the carbon into their actual biomass and then expelling that O2 into our atmosphere for us to breathe. But sequestering carbon is probably one of the biggest things we can do in order to mitigate and hopefully reverse climate change. And there's so many ways we can sequester carbon, but planting trees is one of those ways. And then the second most important thing I would say is being able to reduce the urban heat island effect. And I'm not sure, are y'all familiar with the urban heat island effect?
Not really.
Yeah, so it's essentially this phenomenon we see in city areas where the city is going to be a lot hotter than the surrounding rural areas. And this is because there's construction materials like concrete, asphalt, metal, glass, and all of this is allowing the sun to, it's absorbing that radiation, and there's nowhere for it to really escape. So it's just building and building. So we see downtown areas being the hottest in cities, and then it slowly gets cooler when you get to like commercial and urban residential areas, and then like parks, and then you're going to have your coolest areas in the rural parts. But daytime temperatures can be about 1 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit higher than temperatures in outlying areas. And then nighttime temperatures can be anywhere from 2 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit higher than the rural surrounding areas. And this is just because trees provide, for one, shade. So it can feel anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit cooler under a tree. And this is how we see a reduction of heat-related illnesses. I know I mentioned it reduces the need for air conditioning earlier. And that's because in the summer, if you put the trees on, I believe it's like the south side of your house, and I believe it's east and south side of your house, it basically allows for, instead of your house absorbing all the solar radiation, it's the tree. So your house isn't warming up as much.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, right. Because like not only is it actually giving you a cooler environment, but it's also saving your need, like saving energy by reducing that need.
I see. I think that that's really cool how like the locations of where you plant it also matters. Not a matter of like, whether you have like lands available or not, but also, the directions of whether it's east or south or whatever it might be. So just going back a little bit earlier, you were talking about how some people think that because we're in a drought at the moment, we shouldn't be planting trees because it uses up like water. So are there like native plants or trees available that we can plant so that way they don't use as much water?
Yeah, definitely. So at our city forest, we try to focus on drought tolerant trees and shrubs. Sometimes this is native, sometimes these are native species and sometimes they are not. But I think with the onward of climate change and global warming, it's kind of a weird situation because some trees that are native and survived here really well at one point, they're not going to be able to survive the new temperature reality like of our life. So they won't be able to survive summers as hot as the ones we're getting now. So we do have a mixture of native and non-native. And we always try to focus on drought tolerant trees and shrubs because we are in California. There's some years we have water, some years we don't, but in the long scheme, we need to be conscious of the water that we're using.
So now that you mentioned all of these benefits of having trees, how can we get some trees planted on our campus or at our house?
Yeah, so for that, you're gonna wanna, well, there's a couple things you can do. For one, you can email trees@ourcityforest.org. And this holds true for, if you want to get a tree at your house, your family's house, a friend's house. But I think the best route for students to take if they want to see trees on their campus is talk to your professors, talk to your counselors, talk to your deans, your principals, email them, let them know this is something you're interested in. Because I think once that pressure is there from people on campus, then it's more likely to speed up that process. Not saying that like principals and deans don't want trees on their campus, but they have their plates are so full. They have a lot of stuff to worry about. So when there's people coming to them saying, hey, this is important to me, it's definitely going to put it on the radar for them. And then with our city forest, when you get a tree, we need someone to be able to be that steward for that tree. So essentially to take care of it, to provide it with weekly watering and care. And just to go on a little tangent, when I say weekly watering, for the first 3 years of a tree's life, it needs to be watered once a week just to, because it's still a baby, it needs that care. But after that, it's pretty smooth sailing from there.
Wow, that's so interesting. So speaking of trees, where does our city forest get their trees and shrubs from?
Yeah, so we actually have a nursery our own nursery. Back in the day.
A nursery for trees. I've never heard of that. It's cute.
Yeah. It's like, a plant nursery. Like a little space to care for these baby trees. Yeah. Back when we first started, our city forest was getting a lot of their trees and shrubs from just like outsourcing to nurseries in the community. And we eventually realized that that was kind of, for one, getting expensive, but also at the end of the day, a nursery in your community is a business and they want to make, they need to make money to survive. So it's not necessarily about like the health of the tree and like the like taking care of it so it has the best possible chances of surviving. It's more so just about like having these trees for people to buy, which is great. But having our own nursery allows us to really keep track of all the things we're doing and how we're taking care of these trees so they have the best possible chances of actually surviving and lasting. Because so many times you hear about just various card companies or companies in general saying, oh yeah, we're going to donate this money, or like everything you buy, there will be one tree planted. But then you kind of have to think like, how many of these trees are surviving? Where are they planting them? So having our own nursery allows us to ensure the best possible chances of surviving. And we sometimes collect our own cuttings, but we also go through bare roots, which is really cool. And I didn't know this until I worked here, but we get these trees that have no soil like in their roots at all. And we have to pot them in a specific way so that we kind of form their root ball. And it's just really interesting to see like a bundle of 20 trees like zip tied together, not necessarily zip tied, but and then their roots are literally bare. But it's really cool. And it's nice to be able to know that we're controlling everything as best as we can so they can survive.
Wow, that is awesome. So every time I'm driving around and I see trees, I'll know like how much effort our city forest is putting onto all these trees planted. So how do you determine what trees get planted? Is it based on your like personal preference, or is it based on like the cost? Or what kind of things do you take into considerations?
Yeah, so before we plant a tree, we try and talk to the person or the people who are wanting to get this tree planted. And we definitely see what are they are looking for in this tree, whether that be year-round shade, wildlife value, beautiful fall colors or flowers, whatever that may be. So we take that into consideration, and we also take into consideration where this tree will be planted. So we look at their grounds, and before we plant any tree, we need to consult with, I believe, like PG&E and other services to see what's going on underground, because there might be pipes nearby, or whatever might be under there. We need to know so we can choose a tree that's not gonna have like a wild root system, or we can kind of like make better calls to ensure that nothing happens. But we also take into consideration like the space overhead, so whether or not there are power lines, and also the soil where the tree will be planted. And yeah, like whether or not that tree is being parked or planted in a park or like a sidewalk tree. We call them street trees. So it's just a bunch of different things we take into consideration to determine what tree will be planted. One that's going to make everyone happy, but also, like I said earlier, have the best chance at surviving in that area.
Oh, that's so interesting. So we've talked about like how we can get a tree, where they get planted. How exactly do you plant a tree? Do you just like dig a hole and then water it every week and it's a done deal? Or how exactly do you plant one?
Yeah, so before I worked here, I definitely thought planting a tree was just like 1, 2 done, but kind of find out it's like a whole process. You have to make sure that the hole is like 3 times the length of the bucket that the tree is in. And then you have to like make sure the first woody root is an inch below the topsoil, and you have to create like a little mound of dirt before you put the tree in the hole. So it's a whole process of like calculated steps you have to take. And then there's a step where you have to, once you take the tree out of the bucket, you have to do what's called tickling the root ball, where essentially you pet it like it's a dog.
Oh.
And what you're doing here is trying to loosen up the roots and get them, facing outwards so they don't grow within themselves and choke the tree. But yeah, I thought it was super interesting that come to find out it's not just as simple as digging a hole and putting a tree in there.
There's a lot of steps into it. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of like process, a lot of steps into within the process, not just as simple as just take a plant and then put it somewhere and it will grow on its own. So the last question to close us out for today, how can people get more involved with our city forests?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to get involved. For one, you can volunteer with us. And in order to do that, you would want to reach out to, you can either go on our website or reach out to the email volunteer@ourcityforest.org. And when you volunteer, you can either work with the nursery or with tree care. So this would consist of like going around watering trees, pruning trees, putting mulch on them. Or you could work with the tree plantings. So actually getting your hands dirty and planting some trees. But honestly, like whatever special skills people have, we would love to use them. Whatever people are passionate about, we would love to make use of their passion. So it's really like we are so open to working with volunteers and seeing what they want to do and accommodating with that. But also you can become a tree amigo. And this is if you really want to commit to being a leader in your community, this would be a great way to do that, because essentially you'll be taking a set of 5 informational sessions and you'll be able to coach other volunteers on what to do, since you'll know our practices and stuff. And in order to learn more about that, you can visit our website under the volunteer tab. There's a Tree Amigo page to give you more information, or you can email treeamigo@ourcityforest.org. But right now we are actually have applications open for AmeriCorps members. So I forgot to mention this earlier, but like the backbone of our city forest is AmeriCorps members. We probably have, I think, 5 staff members that are here all the time year round. Like this is their full-time job, but the majority of work that gets done is from AmeriCorps members who are serving either like X amount month term, and applications are actually open right now for anyone who's interested. I'd recommend just Googling AmeriCorps openings, our city forest, and it will be that first page on there. And for anyone who's interested, I believe the deadline is September 7th, and it would be an 11-month term. You'd work 40 hours a week and receive a $20,000 living stipend and a $10,000 educational award. So if you are interested in grad school or, just going back to school of any kind, that's a good thing to have. And also it's a great thing to put on your resume, because at the end of the day, $20,000 for 1,700 hours is not necessarily a lot of money, but it's more so about serving your community and having something to, say that you helped out in this way. And it's really a great opportunity to kind of like further your career in this field, if that's like what you're interested in doing. And then just backpedaling a little, because I forgot to mention, I mentioned how trees can save you money in your air conditioning for the summer, but I never really went into the heater aspect of it. Okay, so in the winter, if you plant a row of conifer trees on the north and northwest sides of your house, it actually creates a wall that will shield your house from cold winter winds. And this can save you about like 30% on your heating costs. I know it's like super late after the question, but I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Violet, for joining us on this episode and for enlightening us on the importance about trees in the school and like so much other benefits of them. Where can our listeners find our city forest on social media?
So we are on Instagram. We are now on TikTok too, which is pretty cool. We are also on Facebook, and we also have our own YouTube channel. We have like some informational videos up on there. We might have a Twitter, but I don't think we're really active on there. Yeah, we are on Twitter, I'm pretty sure. And all of those handles are just going to be at our city forest. Nice and simple.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to our second episode of the SJSU Green Campus Podcast, a podcast by the San Jose State University Office of Sustainability. To learn more about the topics discussed in today's show, check out our episode description to find links to a variety of resources mentioned in this episode. Special thanks to our special guest, Violet Awwad from Our City Forest, for joining us today. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SJSU Green Campus to stay connected. For more information about the SJSU Office of Sustainability, check out our website, sjsu.edu/sustainability. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.